When I think back, it all started so simply, almost too ordinary to notice anything wrong. My dad's best friend had been around my entire life, a constant presence who felt like an extension of the family. He was at birthdays, barbecues, even the small family dinners where laughter seemed to echo louder because of him. Growing up, I always thought of him as someone trustworthy, someone my dad leaned on as much as I did. Whenever my father was away with work, he was the one who stepped in to offer advice, check in on me, and remind me that I wasn't alone. At first, I felt grateful, because my dad's absence left me craving that guidance, and his best friend filled the gap effortlessly. He had this confidence about him, this way of speaking that made you feel like he always knew what was best. He started with small gestures that didn't seem out of place at the time. Helping me with school projects, offering guidance about choices I was too nervous to discuss with my dad, even listening to things I thought no adult would ever care about. His words came wrapped in patience and charm, making me feel valued, noticed in ways I rarely did at home. I admired him for being present, for being reliable, and for taking the time to understand me without judgment. Looking back, I realize he knew exactly how to step into that empty space, how to play the role of a mentor who could provide the attention I didn't even know I was longing for. It was during those moments that the line between family friend and something else began to blur. I can remember how he would joke about teaching lessons and how natural it felt to laugh with him about things my dad would never joke about. He was easy to talk to, and soon, I found myself looking forward to his presence, to the way he noticed small things about me. That admiration grew slowly, almost invisibly, until it carried more weight than I understood. Spending time with him became normal, almost routine, but it was in those quiet moments together that things started shifting in ways I didn't fully process. He'd offer to drive me places or suggest we hang out when my dad was busy, and I never thought twice about it. At first it felt harmless, just the comfort of having someone who cared enough to make time. But then the compliments started slipping in, little remarks about how grown up I was looking, or how I carried myself differently now compared to when I was younger. He said it in a way that sounded encouraging, but there was a weight behind it that lingered in my mind longer than it should have. I started noticing his gestures more. A hand on my shoulder that stayed a moment too long, a laugh that felt warmer than it needed to, the way his eyes held mine when he spoke. It was confusing, because none of it seemed openly wrong, yet it stirred something in me I didn't want to name. When I questioned it silently, I'd reassure myself that he was just being supportive, just teaching me about confidence like he always claimed. That's when he told me not to mention every little thing to my dad. He said my father would just overreact and misunderstand. At the time, that explanation made sense, but it was also the beginning of secrecy. Late evenings became different. He leaned in closer under the excuse of showing me how to adjust posture, or casually brushed against me when fixing something as if it were nothing. I felt the nervous energy building inside me, caught between knowing this was drifting beyond ordinary and telling myself it was still innocent. That confusion kept me silent, even as the boundaries between us quietly slipped away. The more time we spent together, the further things went, and it stopped feeling like harmless guidance. He framed everything as a lesson, repeating that he was preparing me for the real world, that I'd thank him later for understanding things most people my age were clueless about. At first, I clung to those words because they gave me a reason to quiet the uneasiness I felt. But deep down, I knew this wasn't guidance anymore, it was something else entirely. The way he touched me, the way he spoke in softer tones reserved only for me, made it clear. I told myself I should stop it, yet I didn't, because the attention was intoxicating. I began lying without hesitation. When my dad asked where I'd been or why his best friend seemed to spend so much time with me, I brushed it off with excuses that rolled off my tongue too easily. Each lie made the guilt heavier, but the pull toward him kept winning. I started to crave those moments, needing his presence in ways I had never admitted before. When I compared him to people my own age, they felt immature, lacking the confidence and certainty he carried. He had positioned himself as irreplaceable, and I had fallen into that belief without resistance. The realization hit me hardest one night when everything went further than it ever had before. For the first time, it was undeniable that we'd stepped over every line, and no excuse could cover it up. The guilt was suffocating, but even with that weight pressing down, I couldn't bring myself to walk away. He convinced me it was normal, whispered that no one had to know, and I let myself believe him. That was when I understood the damage wasn't just about secrecy, it was about betraying my father in the most personal way possible. Eventually everything unraveled, because secrets like that never stay hidden forever. My dad started to notice the tension, the glances, the way I acted differently when his best friend was around. One evening he walked in on a moment that wasn't obvious enough to expose everything, but it was enough for him to sense the betrayal hanging in the air. His voice was sharp when he asked what was going on, and before I could even form words, his best friend jumped in with excuses, brushing it off as nothing serious, claiming he was just showing me how to handle myself, just teaching like he always did. The denial felt rehearsed, and hearing those words made me realize how deeply manipulated I had been into believing the same thing. My father's anger was instant, but beneath it I saw the hurt. He had trusted his best friend like family, and he had trusted me to be honest with him, and now both of us had broken that trust. His best friend was pushed out of our lives quickly, no more dinners, no more visits, no more presents in the house. For me, the punishment wasn't a grounding or yelling, it was the silence. The way my dad looked at me differently, guarded, as if the bond we once had been fractured into something that couldn't be pieced back together. In the days that followed, the shame grew heavier. I realized I had mistaken manipulation for care, attention for love, and secrecy for safety. What I thought was special left nothing but damage. My father lost a friend, and I lost his trust. The scars from that still linger, because the line we crossed can never be erased. If I've learned anything, it's that what begins as something small can spiral into choices that leave permanent marks on everyone involved.